Welcome, everyone. Just a little bit away from 5 o'clock. So we will get started in just a little bit. Just give everyone a few more seconds to join the call, and then we'll jump right in. We have quite a bit to talk about today, so I won't waste too much time waiting for people to join us. As always, these webinars are recorded and will be posted on our website typically the day after. So if you need to jump off or you come in late to any one of these, you can always access a recording of these on our website to check out later. And you can always revisit them as many times as you like. So we're just at the hour, maybe wait 10 more seconds. So it's an exciting presentation this month. We're going to discuss the new sampling pump that we've been designing and just recently released last week for purchase. So go over some of the features, some of the steps for calibration and sampling for everyone here. And there'll be time for some questions at the end. If you have questions, you can post them in the chat. I may answer some during the presentation, but I'll try to answer as many as I can at the end if there's any remaining. So we'll jump right in, and we'll just chat about the pump. So we're going to just do the really brief spiel about Sporecyte, who we are, and then we're going to jump right into the pump. So I'm your presenter today. My name is Dylan McIntosh. I'm a certified industrial hygienist. I'm the Sporecyte product group manager here at Sporecyte, lab director, and a few other things around at TechCyte. So TechCyte's the name of our company. We are leaders in machine learning, artificial intelligence, computer vision, digital microscopy. We operate in 3 verticals. Sporecyte is our environmental vertical. We also have TechCyte, which works for human medical analysis. We have a collaboration with the Mayo Clinic. They're a good partner with us on the human side. VetScan Imagist is our veterinary science, where we partner with Zoetis, which is the world leader in animal health. So I'm going to jump straight in to talking about our pump. So got a few of them here. Some I looked at the list of attendees. I know we've shipped out pumps to some of you so far. I'm not sure if you've received them yet or not in the mail, but we've shipped out a whole bunch of these so far. We're going to be talking about pumps today. So what makes a good sampling pump for testing? One, you have the appropriate flow rate. Spore trap cassettes like these have a flow rate most often designed to be operated at 15 liters per minute. Some may be less. I haven't seen any that are more, but each cassette manufacturer will have the recommended flow rate. So having a pump that can achieve those flow rates is key. There's a lot of low volume sampling pumps out there that can do 1 or 4 liters per minute. There's some that can do 30 liters per minute, but you want to have one right there in the 15 liters per minute for most spore traps, like the aerosol cassette. Adjustable calibration is also important because you want to be able to adjust just naturally as the pump ages, as it sets in. The flow rate won't be the same as it is on day 1 than day 100, and then also atmospheric differences can change the flow rate. Some nice to haves in a sampling pump: time sampling period. If you're a home inspector, you're probably not going to be taking a mold sample and wanting to stand there for 5 minutes with a stopwatch and turn it off when it's done. You want to set up the pump, start the sample, and do other work while that's collecting. And then also robust construction. Something that's fragile or easily breakable can be a no-go for people like you, where you're traveling a lot, you're pulling things in and out of your work vehicle, bringing them onto the job site. Maybe you knocked it over or it fell down a stair. You want to make sure it's robust enough to handle that. And then another key thing is being compatible with the tripod. When you sample for mold, there's not always a nice little ledge or shelf or countertop to set the sampling pump on. So in my career, almost all mold samples that I've taken has been with a pump attached to a tripod, so I can put it right in the center of the room Not need to haul a step stool or a ladder or anything else for it to set on, and just have it attached to a tripod for ease of use. So we've designed our pump for the professional home inspector in mind. So it's small, it's rugged, it's reliable. You can attach a tripod to it. We have an automatic timer uh, with LEDs that will give you a status of how many minutes are remaining. Low cost was the key for this. Um, our whole target here was to keep it at about $100, where comparable sampling pumps are multiples of that. If you've looked and tried to price out a sampling pump before, you won't find anything with these features at this price point. And the whole point of this is not to make a bunch of money selling pumps. We don't want to be a hardware manufacturer. We want to be the laboratory. We want to encourage the industry to grow and do more tests. And by that, we're selling this pump at a very low cost. It has an adjustable flow rate. You can calibrate it in the field for precise flow rate. And it's also compatible with a battery pack. One of the compromises we had to make in the sake of reliability and cost was we had to go with a plug-in option as the standard way to power this. It makes it a lot for us to manufacture, a lower cost. And then we found a battery pack that will work really well with it that we don't manufacture or sell, but we give you referrals to purchase. So we'll just carry right on into the operation of the pump. So on these pumps, it's really simple. There's one button. Now there's other things going on. There's a little opening here. That's for your power cord to plug into. And then this little here is where the calibration adjustment is. There's a little screw in there. We include a screwdriver to adjust it, but one button operation for a 5-minute automatic sampling time. So when you've got this pump powered on, you get an illuminated power button, and then that's when you can actually start to collect your sample. And you press the button, and that's when it starts. And you've got a countdown of 5 blue LEDs. At the completion of the sample, those LEDs will illuminate green to indicate a completed sample. If you like to take 10-minute samples, all you have to do is press the button again to kick off another 5-minute sampling period for 10 minutes. It's really handy. It makes it a lot easier for you to go about doing other things while you're on the job site, so you don't have to babysit a pump with a stopwatch. So they're compatible with most Sporecyte cassettes on the market. The aerosol cassette, which is the market leader, the Allergenco D Positrax, which is these rectangular ones, the Allergenco D, which are round cassettes similar to aerosol, and others as well. Our lab, we process these 3 cassettes. We don't process other cassettes, but the way we've designed the inlet is to be pretty ubiquitous to any sampling type. So to do it, you just set the pump where you want it to be. You take a cassette, you set it right there into the inlet. You don't need to squeeze it down or push it down really hard. It sets just right on to that blue inlet, and you can start taking your sample. There's a tripod screw on the bottom, which will amount to a standard tripod to sample in open areas and allow you to get the preferred sampling location, typically in the center of a room. And then, like I said, it comes with a wall adapter. You're going to want an extension cord. We couldn't include a 15-foot wall adapter. It just wouldn't package well with what we've got. So we've got a standard wall adapter. If you're going to use a plug-in, just carry an extension cord. You probably already do. If not, like I said, it is compatible with this battery pack, 12-volt battery pack. We've tested it with the model that we have on our website. Not to say if you've got a different battery pack, it won't work. You just might have to test it out yourself, because couldn't possibly test every single battery pack on the market. But we found one at a good price point with good specs that fits well with what we have. So next, we're going to spend time talking about calibration. If you used our pump before, the egg pump, the little white egg pump, that was fixed flow rate from the factory, 15 liters per minute. You couldn't adjust the calibration on that. And that was, it made that pump even more affordable and easier to use. But as you start to, become more seasoned in mold inspection, you realize quickly that you're going to outgrow the capacities of that pump, and that's really what kicked us off to start the design of this pump. So calibration, what that means is you are measuring and adjusting the flow rate, the rate at which air comes through the pump, to an appropriate level. Our pump, when you purchase it, comes with the pump itself, and then you also get a series of calibration equipment. You get things like a rotometer, which is what measures flow rate. It's an acrylic tube that has graduations and what's called a float inside of it. You get two calibration adapters, which are different styles. A square size one for the aerosol cassettes from Zephon, and this oval shaped adapter for the Allergenco cassettes, either the Positrack or the Allergenco D. When you calibrate, you should calibrate it when you receive the pump, just at your home or office. Just make sure it's plugged in, make sure it's working, get to the 15 liters per minute. Initially, when you set it initially, you probably won't need to set it very often thereafter. So when you take it to a property to sample, you should take a check of the flow rate with the rotometer, see if it's at the appropriate level. If it's not, make some adjustments. If it is, you're ready to pump. Use the pump. If you change the cassette type, so for example, if typically you're using aerosol cassettes, but maybe you've recently switched away from aerosol to a different style cassette, you'll want to make sure you calibrate it before using a different style cassette, because these cassettes have different aerodynamic properties, which makes the flow rate different through each one. So you want to make sure you calibrate it with the correct cassette in line. And then another is if you're switching from a wall power to a battery pack or vice versa, you'll want to recalibrate it because the power coming to the pump is going to be different, whether it's from a wall or a battery. So those are scenarios where you're going to want to run a calibration. So I talked about the equipment. You need the pump. You need an airflow measurement tool. We provide a rotometer when you purchase the pump. Now, if you're an advanced mold inspector, you may have a different calibration tool that you have. Those will work with this as well. You don't have to use the rotometer that's provided, but most of us using this pump probably will. You'll want to use a cassette. And I always say you want to designate a cassette as your calibration cassette, because you don't want to mix it up with your sampling cassettes, and you want to keep it with your kit. You could write on it calibration, make sure it doesn't get mixed up with your other ones, because you're going to want to calibrate this or check the calibration frequently, and you don't want to use your sampling cassette as the cassette you use in the calibration train. And what that means is you want to just reuse the same calibration cassette every time you check. The most important thing is with these, don't remove the label. The label's required for this to have a proper seal. Same with these. So just keep it standard like a cassette, write calibration on it, and store it with your rotometer and other equipment like the adapters and the screwdriver that you use to adjust. So to set up your calibration, you want to acclimate your components to the temperature where you're sampling. That should only take 5 or 10 minutes. So if you bring your kit in when you get to the property, you don't need to let it sit for hours and hours and hours. You bring it in when you enter, go about doing your inspection. By the time you're ready for mold testing, you'll have it acclimated. Place the pump on a solid surface, countertop, a table, all works well. If you have a tripod also works. So then next you want to attach your calibration cassette to the pump, just like this, like you're going to sample. I would tell you to consider using the elastic bands that come with the cassette to provide a more secure attachment, because you're going to be possibly using both your hands as you're doing the calibration. You want to make sure that using these elastics to hold it down, just make sure that you're not going to break it loose while you're doing your calibration. Get the proper adapter tubing, and you attach it to the rotometer. The rotometer has a barbed adapter there, and you just connect the tubing there. You don't need to push it all the way on, just as long as it's to the first graduation, that should be fine. You don't need to shove it all the way out to the base of the adapter. And then you attach this part to the sampling cassette itself. And now, like this, you're ready to calibrate. Go over some more steps here. So here's a picture of everything there. You can either choose to hold the cassette there with it attached to the rotometer. When this rotometer moves, you could move the cassette. So that's why I suggest either using your hand, or even better, the elastic bands that we ship with the pump to hold it on, to make sure it's not going to pop off while you're calibrating. You'll know if it pops off because that float, you can see it's up there right about in between the 15 and 20 mark. That float will drop if you break the seal on the pump. So you'll know right away. Many of you probably haven't used a rotometer before or unfamiliar with the rotometer. So we'll give you a quick overview of a rotometer and how to take a measurement and how to read it. So rotometers are a pretty simple device. It's got what's called a float. It's in in this case, it's an acrylic piece of equipment. It has an inlet and an outlet, and you can either attach this to something like a pump that is pulling air, or something that is actually blowing air to measure the flow rate of that air. The rotometer that we ship has what's called a ball float. So inside the bottom of there, it's a little round ball bearing, and a ball float is designed to be read at the midpoint of the float, the center point of the float. So as it comes up into the scale there in the rotometer, you will read at the widest point, the center point of that ball. So here you've got a little drawing where if this scale on the left-hand side was graduated, say in increments of 5, so the first long line is 5, the next long line is 10, we'd be at 9 on that scale. It seems a bit odd, but after you do it once or twice, you'll get the hang of it. When you're holding the rotometer, or you have the rotometer taking a measurement, you want to make sure not to block the inlet at the bottom. If you put your finger over that, you'll see that the flow rate drops down because you're blocking the inlet. It can't actually pull any air in. So you don't want to cover that part. So after you attach all the equipment to the pump, you want to turn the pump on and observe the flow rate on the rotometer. And if it's correct, you're ready and go sampling. So if it's at 15 liters per minute, you're ready to go. If the flow rate needs to be adjusted, you'll want to remove this cover for the calibration adjustment area. It's got this little blue cover, and behind it is a small hole. And inside of that hole is a set screw that will adjust the flow of the pump. If you turn it clockwise, you can increase the flow, and if you turn it counterclockwise, it will decrease the flow. Typically, you only need to make very fine adjustments. Less than 1/8 of a turn of the screwdriver in one direction or the other will probably be a difference between 5 liters or 5 liters per minute, maybe. So it's a very fine adjustment either way until your rotometer is reading at 15 liters per minute if you're using something like an Aerocell or PosiTrack cassette. When the flow rate is set to the desired level, you turn off the pump. You can remove all the accessories, you can replace the plug, and you'll be ready to go sampling. I got a great question here that I'll answer. Is there a copy of the instructional slide deck for training personnel? We can get the slide deck. We can put it on our website. There's also going to be this recording on the website as well. And are there going to be educational videos on calibration? We plan on recording those as well. Not quite sure what the timeline is for those, but we do intend to have videos on this. So if you don't learn well from a presentation like this or reading, we will have videos. And then we'll jump right back in here. So when you're adjusting the flow rate, like I said, you leave the calibration equipment attached. You can remove it and make adjustments. I prefer to calibrate like I have in the photo here, where I'm looking at the rotometer and I'm making the adjustments at the same time. When you're reading from a rotometer, you want to make sure you're holding it level, and you want to make sure you're looking at it straight on. You don't want to look at it from above or below, because it can throw off where you're reading the float and the graduation lines. So you want to hold it level, and you want to bring your eyes level as well. And then, like I said, very small, fine adjustments. Turn the set screw, very small amounts to get to that 15 liters per minute. And then here's a little tip. Like I said, consider using the included elastic bands. These things are going to be really handy. We ship each pump with a few of them, just in case you lose them. They shouldn't break. They're very sturdy and they don't add much tension, but just enough to make it so as you might move the rotometer, you don't move the cassette off of the attachment. And and that will make it a lot easier for you to actually adjust while reading. Another tip is you could use the box or some similar, you could use a tackle box or any other thing that you can rest the rotometer on that's level and at the appropriate height. So now you could go hands-free and you could look at it and turn the screw at the same time. The box is good because it's something that we ship with the pump. I'll say the rotometer I have here is not the rotometer we ship with these pumps. We've found a smaller, more compact unit, so you're not carrying around this big 8-inch long one. There's one about half the size that we ship, and it would still work with this. You just turn the box on a different side, but that frees up both hands and can make this process go really quick. I've got a question here. Will the pump be adjustable from 5 to 15 liters per minute? What's the max flow rate? So the dependence there is what kind of cassette you're using, because the cassette will add a restriction to the flow rate. On a typical Sporecyte cassette, I could certainly get down to 5 liters per minute, and I could probably get up to about 19 liters per minute through something like an aerosol cassette. Now, I can't say that's going to be the case for every style cassette. Certainly something like a filter cassette for different style sampling will have much higher resistance and will limit the flow rate. We've tested this mainly with Sporecyte cassettes. 5 liters per minute would be totally fine. You could probably get up to about 18 or so. Next, sampling procedure. I won't go too detailed into actually sampling for mold. We have a ton of other resources on that. I'm going to stay specific to the pump and what might be unique about using our pump. So you determine your sampling location and place your pump in the desired spot. Like I said, tripod can be handy, countertop, step stool, etc. Make sure it's on a solid footing. And then you'll connect to a power source. Like I have here, I have the battery pack here, and the light is illuminated. I've attached my sampling cassette to the top, and I've used the elastic band here for a more secure connection. Because I'm holding it up like this, if I didn't have this, I might actually shake it and it might fall off during a presentation. But I do suggest using those for sampling. It makes a belt and suspenders approach. It makes sure that nothing breaks loose. When you press the button, it will begin the sampling cycle, and those LEDs will illuminate all 5 of them. For each minute that elapses, one blue LED will go dark, and when the pump has finished a 5-minute sample, all the LEDs will illuminate green and you're ready to start another sample. Now, if you need to stop a sample, which for whatever reason you might need to, whether you're calibrating or maybe something else happened, we've designed this to, if you press the button, it's not going to stop the cycle. And we've done that because we don't want any intermittent accidents to turn off the cycle. We want it to run. So if you do need to stop a cycle for any reason, all you need to do is disconnect the power, and then that cycle will stop. So I'll talk more about this battery pack that we have spec'd for this. Like I said, we've got a standard wall adapter for most uses. You could use this anywhere you have power. Like I say, I suggest using an extension cord to make sure you've got an appropriate reach to the nearest outlet. But otherwise, you could use that anywhere you'd need. We've tested it with this brand battery pack, this Talent Cell battery pack. It's a 12-volt battery pack, which is a little unique. A full charge can support over 100 pump cycles. When I was testing, I got to 100 pump cycles, and there's status LEDs on the battery pack, and I still had 4 out of 5 lights illuminated. So it's going to go for more than 100, but I stopped testing there because I think that was appropriate. A charge pack can retain charge for over 3 months without discharging. I've had this thing sitting in a beside my desk. I haven't plugged it in a very long time, and it's retained a very good charge level. Other 12-volt or higher battery packs may work, but not guaranteed. You might want to test it out. I know there's various battery packs out there that may or may not work. So if you don't want to purchase this one, you can test it. Just make sure you get the correct barrel style plug to plug into the pump. And then, like I said before, if you're going to switch to or from a battery pack, you're going to want to recalibrate your pump at that time. You want to calibrate it specifically to the source you're using, because there will be a difference in the flow rate if you change from a wall or a battery pack. So another great question is, I've got this battery pack, how do I attach it? Because it's not integrated inside, we've got a few options here. What I've got here is it's actually using the provided elastic bands. That works, certainly. It's not the best idea. My preferred solution is using Velcro. We've got this flat side here that has a little opening, and that's where we ship the wall adapter. It fits right inside of that opening. Now this doesn't fit very well, but there is a flat spot here, in this battery pack is also flat, where you could attach Velcro or double-sided tape, and it can sit there and be secure. Another thing that I did just recently this week is I was playing around with some of our production samples and thinking about how we might be able to fit this into the cubby. So I used a Dremel tool and cut open this open area. You're not going to hurt, there's nothing here. It's totally void space. And you can actually squeeze it in just like this. It's not very pretty, but it does the trick if you don't want to use the elastics or double-sided tape or Velcro on the side. There may be other things that you think of that we didn't think of. You could get a really long cable and just set it on the ground or the countertop. That works as well. So a question, as the battery drains, does it impact the flow rate? No, this battery pack is designed to deliver a constant flow of power that's regardless of the state of charge. So it's not like a AA battery where your charge when it's brand new is at a certain voltage, and when it drops down, it gets weaker. It's designed for constant performance at 12 volts. So a couple frequently asked questions that we've had so far. I'm sure we'll add to this in the future. I see the pump comes with these elastic bands. Are they required to be used when sampling, and how are they used? It's a really great question. So on the pump body itself, on one end, there's a little hook, and on the back end, there's a wider hook. And we have these elastic bands that we ship with the pump that will hook under those, go over the top of the cassette, and then to the other hook. And these are really there to add additional security to the cassette while you're sampling. It's not required. You could choose to set your cassette into the inlet just like that, and you could sample like that. But what can happen is if you come over and shake it around, it could come loose. Depending on the cassette type you use, that fitment is more snug or less snug. It's still going to be airtight and be okay, but some cassettes will break free if you knock the pump around too much, which you shouldn't while you're sampling, but it is a potential. So we've got this system here, and I'm the type of person who I would just be extra careful, and I would use this every time. Certainly, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's my recommendation. So for round cassettes like this, I like to add a turn into the elastic, so that way it's not sliding off the sides. The only things we want to look out for is make sure you're not crossed up over the sampling inlet. So you don't want to cover the inlet. And it works with both the round and the rectangle style cassettes. Does the pump come calibrated? So the pump from the factory does not come calibrated. And the reasons are there's atmospheric conditions like temperature and atmospheric pressure that affect the flow rate of pumps. The factory also doesn't know if you're using an aerosol, Positrack, something else. So we wouldn't know exactly how to calibrate it for your specifications. And also if you're going to use a battery pack or not. So it comes uncalibrated. You'll want to do that first calibration right when you receive it at home or at the office to make sure you get it operational. And that's also just a good check to make sure you're familiar with how the pump uses the features and how to use it in the field before you show up to the job site with a new piece of equipment. I see another question here. Do you have an anticipated service life for this new pump? 100 samples, 1,000 samples? So our part of our testing that we had with the factory during this is we designed this pump to work for 10,000 cycles. That was our target, was 10,000 cycles, and that's what we tested to. So that's the target, that's the goal. 10,000, even the most productive mold samplers out there probably aren't going to hit 10,000 samples taken on a pump in at least a couple of years. So if you get to that point, very likely, I mean, you might wear holes in the thing from handling it so often if you're doing sampling that frequently. So that's our target. That's what we're looking for. That's part of what we're trying to bring with the components and keeping it at an affordable price. Can you effectively use the system for in-wall sampling via an extended from the cassette? Certainly, it's a pump that works just like any other pump. If you do inner wall sampling, like wall checks or things like that with those long tubes, very similar to this. The attachments are very similar to this, but they have a rigid end that goes into the wall. There's no reason why this pump wouldn't work for that. I will say 5 minutes is not an appropriate sampling period for a wall check sample. You're going to overload that sample. Typically 1 minute or less. So you'll want to time it separately and make sure you remove it before 5 minute sample elapses, because you're not going to get very good data with a 5 minute wall check sample in most cases, but it should work in those instances. I will say you're definitely going to want the attachment point on when you're doing a wall check, because if you're putting that into a wall, you need to drill the hole in the wall. It's possible that this movement can move that loose. So that's just another use case for those elastics. So we're all done with our presentation. We're a few minutes over. I don't see any more questions on my list, but I'll give you guys maybe a couple minutes if you have additional questions. If something comes up, you don't remember it now, you think of it later in the evening, definitely give us an email or a call and we can help you out. I have another question about wall checks. I'm not going to get into the details of sampling wall checks here. You might want to research that topic yourself and look at some of the documentation out there. But the pup technically will work for that use case if that's the type of sample you're taking. So wait just another minute or two, maybe less than a minute or two, but see if any other questions come in. And then, yeah, if you have any future questions, you can reach out and we'd be happy to answer. Again, we record these. This will be put onto our website. We do plan on getting more training materials for you in the future. The pump box that it ships with comes with, there's a QR code on the back to get you to the quick start guide that will be very similar to the presentation that I've given you here about how to calibrate, how to operate. How often do you recommend calibrating the pump? You should calibrate it when you receive it, and you should check calibration at each job site before you take samples. And if its calibration is appropriate, you don't need to adjust. If it is off, you will want to adjust and recalibrate. And then you need to recalibrate it, as I said before, when you switch between the style cassette you're using, if you're going from an Allergenco to an Aerocell or vice versa, or if you're switching from using a 12-volt wall adapter for power or battery pack for power. Those are the instances where you will want to calibrate the pump. Routine, once you set it, very unlikely you'll need to adjust it too much day to day, but you always want to check it before sampling at each project property. Each property you'll want to recheck because, like I said, temperature and pressure can have an effect on the flow rate, and you want to make sure that you're being precise. How should it be stored and transported? Just like you would any other tool. You probably don't want to keep it on your dashboard in Arizona in the middle of summer, and you don't want to keep it in the trunk of your car if you live in North Dakota in the middle of winter. Transported, we've talked to some guys who put this in a tackle box, a toolkit. You could put it in a bag. You don't need to be super careful with it. It's pretty rugged. I wouldn't toss it down a flight of steps, but I wouldn't be worried about carrying this around in a backpack or any other. You don't need to get a Pelican case with foam all around it to carry this around. You could keep it in a toolkit or a backpack or something like that. All right, so with that'll be the last question I answer here. But if any other questions come up, go ahead and reach out to us through our website or through sales@sporecyte.com, and we can answer any future questions that might come up. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next month with another webinar. So look forward to doing that for you. Everyone have a good evening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.